Hi, it's Sandy Parker, and welcome to Crafting for Almost Everyone. Today we're going to make a card for a bridal shower, and I'm going to be using some paper techniques that are going to show you easier ways to use your paper and to make a card. So I hope you'll stay tuned. Well, first of all, I'm going to be using a 12 by 12 paper pad. If you ever use one and you think, how am I going to make a card out of these? There are a lot of ways to do it, but I thought I would show you some paper cutting techniques because I've had some questions lately about how do I cut paper down when it's bigger to make a regular size card. And also, I wanted to show you how you get these in your 12 by 12 paper stacks. You'll get a piece of card that's a 12 by 12 that has all these different sayings on it. So in this case, I chose Best Day Ever, and I thought I would show you how you cut those out as well, because I want to kind of walk you through the whole gamut of how to cut paper. And then I'm going to be using this layered die with 3 different pieces of cardstock, and we'll walk through that too. Now, this was a paper pad from Recollections. Let me see if I can grab that for you. I didn't buy it very long ago, so they might still have it. It's from Die Cuts with a View. It's called Pocket Blossom. And in these pads, I don't know if you've ever bought one. If you haven't, I want to show you this. You'll always have at least a couple pages like this. These are really great for cutting out and using on the front of your card or in the inside of your card. So let me show you how you cut these apart, because some people don't know how to do that either, and I want to walk you through that too. So let's do this first. I chose the Best Day Ever, but in this for this one we're going to do maybe Beautiful or Dream Big, so you can see just how you do this. The way I do it is I put it in my paper trimmer, and people have asked me about how to cut paper straight in their paper trimmer. The first thing I'll tell you is, if I'm hoping you can see this bar. This bar is crucial, and it needs to be as close to you as possible. So if it's up here at the top, that's no good. You don't want it there. You want it to be as close to you as possible, and you want it to be pulled down every time you cut paper. So it's important that you keep your paper up against that little lip. And then in my case, okay, I'm going to show you this. This is where you have, that's where the paper is going to cut, this little line right here. When you're cutting paper, this is the most important part of your paper trimmer, and I'm just going to put my line right there. This tells you, and I'll do it up here too so you can see it in a couple different places. Woo, kind of went off the grid there. Okay. That is the center of that, where it's kind of white. That's where it's going to cut. So you want to make sure when you want to cut your paper and you want to line it up, that you line up your paper so that it's in the middle of that grid where you want to cut. So you see, here is my line where I want to cut, and here's where, hopefully you can see this, that's where the paper is going to cut this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my cut blade all the way to the top of the paper and then pull it toward me. That is easier than pushing away from you, because sometimes it'll snag on the paper and it'll cut it. You don't want that. So that's how you cut the first part of it. Let's just do It's a Beautiful Day, because it'll be easier. So then you're going to line up It's a Beautiful Day. You're going to hold the right side against bar, and then you want to make sure that this line and the line between these two sentiments is the same. So I'm going to put my blade again above that and pull it toward me. Now, if you would have ended up with a little gold from the one beside it, all you'd have to do is trim that off. But I wanted to show you that. We'll show you one more time. You're going to line it up so that this line on the paper trimmer and the line between the two papers patterns is the same. You know, it's a continuous line. Then you want to hold your paper in place. It's important that you hold your paper and use your other hand for the trimmer, and then that gives you a perfect cut. So that's our first step. That's how you cut that. So then our next thing we're going to do is I'm going to make this a typical A2 size card. I don't know who came up with those A2, but let's just go with it for now. And an A2 size card it can be cut two different ways, and I'm going to show you both of them. The first thing you want to do, I think I'm just going to cut this paper in half at 6 inches just so we can play with two different pieces of paper so you're not so confused. Okay, we're just going to assume that this is a full piece of paper. The first way to cut an A2 size card is you want it to be 11 inches long, so you would line this up on 11 inches. Hopefully you can see that. That's 11 inches. You want to have it up against this lip. Make sure it's up against that lip. You're going to pull the bar toward you again. That makes it 11 inches. Now, a lot of people aren't buying scoreboards anymore. They're just using their cutting tool for that. So I'll show you how to do that. When you have an 11-inch piece of paper, half of it is 5.5 inches. So you're going to move it to 5.5 inches. And I made I don't know if you can see that arrow. I'm going to move it up a little so I'm sure you can. I make a 5.5 inch arrow on mine just to remind me that that's what I'm going to always line up for. The cards I make are usually at that width. I'm trying to show you how to do this with minimal tools. The first way to do it is if you have a ballpoint pen that doesn't work. Well, we're not even going to use the one part that doesn't work. We're going to use the cap of the ballpoint pen. We're going to use this part of it. You're going to line that paper up at 5.5. You're going to put that cap in the cut line that I talked about before, and then you're not going to push hard, but you're going to push kind of gently the whole length of that piece of paper. This is to score your paper. It's not to cut it. And scoring means that you made it so you can fold it in half. Can you see that line there? That made it so that you can easily fold it in half because there's a good score line there. And then there you go. That is one way of making an A2 size card. I forgot one component of this. If you were using a normal size piece of paper, you would have had, this side is 5.5, folded in half. This side would be 4.25 inches. So in order to make it 4.25 inches, I'm just going to open it up and I'm going to lay it back in my paper trimmer at 4.25. You see how I have that, hopefully. You see how I have that mark at 4.25 too? Those are the two cuts that I do mostly on my paper trimmer. So we're just going to cut that. So then, this is one of the two types of A2 size cards. This is 5.5 inches by 4.25. Now the other way of doing it is this would be 8.5 inches long to start. This would be just like if you only had a piece of paper that's 8.5 by 11, but you're using the 8.5 inch side. Excuse me. So you want to cut it at 8.5. This is just to make sure we're showing you both ways of doing it. So you're going to cut this paper to 8.5 inches, and then you're going to cut it at 5.5 inches wide. And then you're going to take your scoring tool that we made out of a cap of a pen, and we're going to put this in. Remember, this is 8.5 inches long, so it's going to be 4.25 inches. Halfway is 4.25 inches. This is if you don't have a scoreboard. If you do, then use your scoreboard, but I wanted to show you how to do this without a scoreboard. Oops, I have my cutting tool in my way. That's the other thing. Don't get your cutting tool in the way or you're going to end up having a little problem there. I'm going to go back over that one other time. Okay. So can you see that score in there? You should be able to. And then you're just going to fold it in half like that. So although they're exactly the same size paper, when you put them against each other, they're cut differently. See, this one is really long and narrow, and this one is short and fat. So I hope that made sense to you. It's exactly the same size paper, but it's cut differently so that you can either have a tall, thin card or a short, fat card. Hope that helped you. Now in my case, because we're going to be using some dies and this Best Day Ever, I think I want the tall, thin one, because this one, I don't know if you can figure this out, but if you look at this, I'm just looking at it. This Best Day Ever is almost too big for it. So if we change it over to this paper, then it's in a lot, the proportions are much better. So we're going to be using that I cut. Now, I'm going to want to have a couple other papers so that we can layer them and use them with our dies that we have. And so I think what I'm going to be using is this flowered paper, and I only need enough to use the die cut. So you can either cut a strip of paper off, or, and this is what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to just cut enough paper so that I have the rest of it to use later. So I'm going to cut about this much, and it's about 3.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper trimmer and I'm going to take it so that I'm eyeballing this, that it's going to be just wide enough and tall enough for this piece of paper. So I've only cut from right there to the bottom. Then I'm going to turn my paper like this, and I don't know if you can see where my cut line ends, but my cut line ends right there. Again, you want to line that up with that black mark if you can, if you can figure it out. And your paper cutter, let me find that marker again so I can show you something else. When you have a paper trimmer, there should be a little line on both sides and on the top and bottom. These tell you, the side ones tell you where your blade is. So you want to, when you're cutting this paper, you want to make sure that that blade is lined up with where the paper cut starts. So my paper cut is right there, and I want to make sure that this piece of it, the cut piece, is like that. I hope that made sense. I really wanted to make it so that you understood how to cut paper so that you didn't waste a lot. And normally I would tell you that any paper out of your paper pad would match, but this paper pad is unusual because it has some themes going on, and I don't necessarily think those do match. So I will tell you that, again, I don't think those really match well either. So you want to make sure that if you're using a paper pad that you don't go by the theory that they all match, because sometimes they don't. And I'm just going to find one more piece that I think will look good with that. I'm going to use this, and we're going to do the same thing we did, because all we need really is to cut enough for our die, because we're going to do 3 different die cuts, and the last one is going to be our card base, and we're going to put a lining in that. So let me just cut about the same amount as I did before. It's about 3.5 inches. And as I said before, you're going to turn your paper and you're going to put it so that this lines up with your grid. That's the end right there. I can feel the end of it. I'm going to move my cut line up so that, see that line on the side? It might be a little bit high, but it should cut it pretty well. So that's how you cut papers to work inside card without wasting a lot of your cardstock. Because if you cut, sometimes you're going to end up with a lot of things that you've wasted, and we hate to do that, but this is something you could put on an envelope, so don't worry, we'll figure out uses for those too. But in the meantime, I'm going to get my dies out. I'm going to back this piece with a piece of maybe gold. I haven't decided what I want to put behind this, but you want your your least cut out section, I guess is what we'll call it, you want that to be out of this paper. Then this can be out of either of these two, and then this can be out of the other one. So let me get my snips and I'll cut this apart. You don't want these little sharp edges. They are not fun, and you can really hurt yourself with them. So I'm going to get rid of all my sharp edges. I'm going to take these and cut them with my die cutter, and I'll be right back. Okay, I cut all my die cuts, and in the meantime, I decided I didn't really like this paper for my card, so I changed and went with this. But I am going to be using this inside, so you won't really, it's going to hold everything in place. So it's not any kind of big secret, but that's what I'm going to do with that. And then when you open it, you will see this patterned paper. And then I think I might put Best Day Ever down here. Before I go any further, though, I really want to round my corners, because I think it really makes these long cards look better. For some reason, this one isn't cutting straight, or isn't closing straight. So I'm going to have to trim a little off. And I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't even see to cut it. So I got to get those on. And they're really attractive. If you saw me, you'd be thinking I'm a movie star. I'm going to go with the large, which is on this side. This is, I hate saying this because I hack it up so badly. Cadu, oh for gosh sakes, Cadu Maro Pro. I got it on Amazon, and it's not Amazon Prime, it's just Amazon for under $8, including shipping. There was no shipping charge for it, and that's not Prime, it's just, you know, it's just a free shipping deal on Amazon. And I'm using the large setting for this because I want my edges to be rounded big. And I'm going to do the top two because it's not really thick paper and I can use my elbow to cut through it. Sandy system, in case you were wondering. I like it better with all four corners rounded, which means that the paper that I have underneath, I'm going to have to round all four corners of it, because if I don't, you know what's going to happen. You're going to see it, and it's going to look stupid. Or else I'd have had done some other kind of fancy dancing there to make it invisible. Okay. Then I have this piece of gold that I thought I would put on this paper. Oh, it's going to really give you glare. But I'm going to put this on this paper and put it inside the card because I want my bottom to be gold. So it really brings out the gold highlights in this top paper. If you get my drift, I've got a plan. And if you've never done this before, and you really want to fail at it, the best way to do it to fail is to put the glue on your gold front, because you'll forget about that heart cutout and you'll end up putting glue on that. So my advice is to glue it on the back like this, and then, and the glue I'm using is Tombow Mono Aqua. It's just one of the many hundreds of adhesives I have. If you've never seen my glue, my wet glue video, it is a classic because I bought, I think, 30 plus glues, which was crazy, but I did it anyway. And then the next step in this process is you're going to put that piece inside, and then you're going to lift this up and you're going to put a little glue on the bottom, a little on the sides, and a little bit on the top, and a little bit over here, and a little bit over there. You're just going to put a little glue everywhere. Got my drift? It's just a gluing glue fest. So then you're going to line it up to make sure that these pieces aren't visible, and squeeze it down. Hopefully no one will see any of your boo-boos. So there's where we stand right now. Now we have these three die cuts, and because I've put this gold piece down, you can easily use your fine tip glue applicator. I like this kind of glue because the tip on it is not huge, and yet it's big enough that I can squeeze and get the glue out of it. I also like the little regular Tombow Mono adhesive in the white bottle. They're both equally lovely. The difference is this one has more glue in it, and you know, more is always better. I like a lot of glue, considering I have 30 bottles of it, and I'll probably never go through all the glue I have, even though some of it is not really great glue. Okay, then I have another layer, and I'm gonna put my, ooh, I got glue everywhere. Another way that you can adhere these is you can use your micro brushes, and I'll show you those in just a second because I want to make sure that you see all of the ways that you can put these kind of glue things down. You can line it with that stick-it paper. You can run it through a Xyron machine. If you have a Xyron, I like them, but they leave those little glue balls behind, and sometimes when you have these really thin dies cuts like this one, not this one, the one that's coming up, it becomes a pain in the butt. Did I say that? I shouldn't have. It becomes painful to glue down when you're trying to glue something like this. You can see how dainty that is. So I'm going to show you a couple ways to do it because I want to make sure you know all the options. Alright, so if you're saying to yourself, what is she talking about, these micro brushes? I buy mine from AliExpress. I'm not sure where else you can buy them, but that's where I buy mine. They're very inexpensive. Okay, can you see the little fuzz on the top of that? These ones work really good for glue. And then there's this type that's a little bit more expensive that has kind of a long felt tip. Can you see that? Hopefully you can. I think this fuzzy tip will be much more effective for this. And so the way that I'm going to glue mine down is I'm taking a little piece of scrap paper and I'm going to put some of my glue on it. Not a ton because you are not going to need much for this project. And you're going to dip your little felt tip in there. And then anywhere that you can find some good space to put your glue, the more of these little intersections that you can find to glue down, the better it's going to work in the end. So there is the last one, and it's no coincidence that it matches my paper because I thought it would look much more finished if my top paper or my top die cut matched my card base. And there's that. Now I think that I want to use this set that's called Enjoy, and I might use gold heat embossing on the Enjoy, and then I thought I would do Your Special Day. And so, oh, this set is from Hampton Arts. I'm pretty sure it's Hampton Arts. I always get Hero Arts and Hampton Arts confused, and this is my system HA, which doesn't really help me, does it? It is Hampton Arts. I'm going to use the Enjoy and Your Special Day. And so I'll put Enjoy above it and Your Special Day below it. And I am going to put this into a Misty or whatever. It's going to look something like that. Well, this is obviously backwards. But I'm going to use, my plan is to use Ranger Princess Gold embossing powder. I like it because it's not a bold gold, but that's my plan. And as I said, I am going to put it in the in one of my stamping tools to do this. I know some of you are waiting for me to use the Ranger stamping tool. I haven't done that yet because I wanted to use it for more than just something small like this. So I am going to use it in a video very, very soon. I don't know why. I always feel like I have to line this up before I shut the door, and really the door with the grid on it is kind of the point of the grid on the door, isn't it? I don't know. What do you think? Kind of. Okay. Then I'm going to put my little magnet right there. For me, it helps me to hold this straight up and look at it because then I can really tell if it's lined up properly or not. And If it's, if I look at it like this, I can clearly see that something is a little bit amiss. The other thing I like to do is I can use scrap paper and put a piece of scrap paper over it and stamp once and see how crazy it looks, because that saves you a lot of heartache, because if you stamp it and it's crooked, it's too little too late. This is embossing powder. Well, it's a tool that puts a little bit of, I think it's baby powder, because it really smells like baby powder. You put that on there so that you don't get a bunch of stray flakes of your embossing powder that stick once you've heat set it, and it makes it a lot easier. It makes cleanup a breeze. And when you're using this, sometimes it's easier. I think I just moved it. I hope I didn't. Sometimes it's easier to kind of twist it, but don't twist it when you're stamping on the long sentiment, because if you twist your ink pad, chances are really good that you'll pull that sentiment off, and then you have to start from scratch. So when you have a big sentiment or a big word or something big that you're stamping, you won't have that problem. But if you have something little, you might end up having a little bit of problem. And I'm tilting it away from my die cuts. I don't know if you can see that, because if you tilt it towards your die cut, then you're going to end up with a lot of embossing powder on your center thing. Look at this little problematic piece. I don't know where that came from, but to get rid of it, all you do is that. Wasn't that easy? If you have never watched my videos, or if you forgot, maybe, I write everything down below the video, so you shouldn't have a problem finding anything that you need to know. It should all be written down below. I write step-by-step directions for my hearing impaired viewers. I want to make sure that everybody can watch my videos and get the most out of them, even though they are a little bit quirky, but I just like to make sure that everybody can get the most out of them. And the closed captioning for YouTube has been a little bit iffy. Now, to do any kind of embossing, you want to use your heat tool. Do not use a hairdryer. That won't work. And warm it up. Warming it up is really important, because if you don't, you can burn your paper or have a problem with your embossing. And trust me, I've done that. And then you want to kind of move it around. And as soon as you see it turning, I don't know if you can see the day as turned to gold. I think that looks good. I'm not really especially thrilled at how your special day isn't as visible as I want it to be. I thought it would show up better. I think Enjoy showed up okay, but your special day, not as much as I wanted it to. So I might do something crazy, and I don't know if I should do something. I was thinking about taking some watercolor and just like kind of washing across it so you can see it better. Let's give that a shot. I know most of you out there going, don't do it, but you know me, I'm going to do it. And I think I'm also going to do it with some pearlized watercolors, because it's a wedding card or a wedding shower card after all, so you might as well go for broke on that, right? This is, I just got this. It's a Princeton round number 3. I wanted a small round brush because I don't have a lot of control, and I thought the smaller the better, so that's what I went with. And so we're going to just play with our blue. Got way too much water in. And before I take it to that, I'm going to play with it on the back of this die that I have white paper on, so we can see what it looks like. I think that's a good color, don't you guys? Sure, let's go with it. Should I go with a bigger brush? Maybe I should go with like a big brush that I can mop across there. Okay, we're going to go with this crazy bigger brush, and it has no information on it, so I'm assuming it's like a cheap brush I got at Walmart. And I'm going to move this out of the way, and because I want this to have a little bit of a semblance of order, I'm going to take this and I'm going to run it, I'm going to hold it straight, And yeah, this is crazy, all right. Okay, we're going to do the same with Enjoy, only it's a lot more. I just want it to look like, you know, like I just kind of swatched across it with watercolor paint, which is what I did. Crazy, I know it. Because I haven't ruined it enough, I think I'm going to put some sequins on it, because, you know, nothing says fun like sequins, especially when I have some fun gold ones, and I have some fun blue ones, so, you know, we can go with the whole gamut of fun. Let's shoot some gold ones in here, shall we? So we've got Enjoy Your Special Day, and then we have this card that says Best Day Ever, and I'm going to almost ended up with those on me. I'm going to round the corners of this. You can trim these down a little bit and make them a little smaller so that you like the size better, but I like the size of these. I think they're fine, and I think I'm going to put that right there and I'll just leave the rest for writing, so I can write a big note. Okay, there's that. It's better. The other thing you can do, as I said 3 more times, is you can take a piece of the matching cardstock, and you can, here's my leftover piece, you can put a little piece in the middle and cut it at an angle and glue it down on both sides, and on the bottom for a gift card you can kind of, I'll show you that. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our paper trimmer, and I'm going to trim this piece to about 4 inches. So we're going to line it up with this bottom edge in the line, in the groove, and then the top edge is a little bit at a diagonal, and then we're going to cut that off. Now this piece you can put down here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue a little bit on the edges, and then you can put your gift card in here, or if you have a check that you're going to give them, you can put the check in there. But it's really a way for you to make sure that whatever you're giving them is not lost when they open their cards. You know how sometimes they open everything after an event, and then they, you know, everything's just kind of going everywhere. This makes it so that you don't end up losing anything. So we have our tuck spot for our card, or gift card, or a check, or cash, whatever you're going to give them. And then there's the front of our card. It's a little bit crazy, but I could blot some of that off too. So in the end, I decided to just smear the blue watercolor all over it, and I think it looks a lot better. I don't know about what you think. It's a little bit waffly right now, but that'll flatten out. I can put a book on it and that'll flatten out. No big deal. And then I'm just going to put some gold washi tape across the back of my envelope and then trim it off. So I hope you enjoyed this and that you got some new tips out of it, that you'll give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And please tell your friends about me on social media, because you know I love that. And thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.